Like most children of parents who graduated high school in the late 1970s, I was raised on Fleetwood Mac's Rumors. It's a fantastic record that I stand by today. It was hugely influential in my conception of like what music could or should be, with its strange folky guitar work juxtaposed with all this menace and obscure but relatable lyrical conceits. It made me a Fleetwood Mac fan, and when I was in high school, my parents purchased a sort of essential 2 CD Fleetwood Mac set for me for Christmas one year, and I was suddenly overwhelmed by all of the amazing other things that this lineup of the band was responsible for. The biggest revelation for me was the song Tusk. I remember sitting in our basement playing video games with just that one song on repeat for literally hours at a time. All I had known about the song previously was that my mom didn't like it. She says she remembers it's being on the radio all the time and not understanding because she just thought that it was a terrible song. Weird kid that I am, I thought it was fantastic. I was just enthralled by this song. So when I grew up and got a job and moved out, one of the first albums that I purchased on vinyl was Tusk. And again, just totally enthralled by this record. Its production, its songwriting is so strange and unique, and it's just one of my favorite albums of all time. But when I purchased other Fleetwood Mac albums from the 1980s, I was disappointed because none of this glorious strangeness existed, and I wondered what happened to that. Later I found out that all of that just moved into Lindsey Buckingham's solo work, and the first solo album that he released is called Law and Order, and this is what it looks like. It is a terrifyingly large photo on vinyl. And aside from the puzzling album art choice, so much else about this record is puzzling. There's made-up words all over the place. There's really strange lyrical conceits. Shadow of the West, it seems like it should be hokey, but for me it's not. The production echoes some of the strangeness on Tusk, but more refined and well-developed. Not better, not more conventional, but further along that path of what he was going for with Tusk's production. Lyrically, it's not a very interesting album. A lot of the lyrics are just incredibly simple, to such an extent that like it's hard to have an emotional reaction to most of the songs because there's seemingly nothing to it, put into it emotionally as far as the lyrics are concerned. But musically, it's fantastic. It's so strange. It's like the 1980s and the 1950s had a fling one night, resulting in an unplanned pregnancy, and they gave the child up for adoption, and it was raised by Brian Wilson. That is a really labored metaphor, but I totally believe it. Just everything about the sound of this record is so strange and unique, and I love the sound of Bad Ideas. I've talked about that before. This album is the sound of Bad Ideas, right up there with the Beach Boys' Love You. Just completely perplexing, like why the drums are engineered that way. I don't know. I have no idea why certain production decisions were made. I have to believe that it's exactly what he was going for. It's fucking nuts, but it's what he was going for. It's kind of an auteur theory that needs to be applied to Lindsey Buckingham's solo work, and Tusk, I think, fits into that canon. And understanding what he's doing and why, and that it's all intentional, even if it just sounds bizarre, it's there, it's exactly how he intended it to be, is a worthwhile perspective on his work. I value the uniqueness of Lindsey Buckingham's canon, and I think of all of his solo records, I probably value Law and Order the most, because it's fearless, and he had the machine behind him 100% at this point. Remember, this was released the same year that Stevie Nicks' first solo album was released, and everybody wanted them to have like hugely successful independent careers without Fleetwood Mac, and she did. Her discography endures and still gets radio play all the time. Only Trouble from this album gets radio play from Lindsey Buckingham, and I don't think he's had another single that ever got radio airplay. But yeah, it's so good, so bad, beautiful, bizarre. It's got amazing covers and just weirdness that I love. So you should seek out a copy of the album. You should try to love it, accept it for the strange beast that it is. If you love his tracks on Tusk, I think you'll like this. So you should do that, and I'll see you later.